to merge the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency and the Nigerian Meteorological Agency, who are service providers with the Nigeria Civil Aviation Authority, an industry regulator, has not gone down well with players in the nation's aviation industry. My guest, an aviation expert, speaks on the implications of that proposal. Hello, welcome to Dateline Abuja. I am Omelogo Nnadi. While players in the nation's aviation sector will have to recognize the prerogative of government to restructure and consolidate its ministries, departments and agencies, there are those who have expressed reservations about the plan to merge 3 aviation agencies. Among them are the aviation agency workers. Aviation workers march peacefully in unison. From the major road to the general aviation terminal in Ikeja, their chants rent the air. Not only their voices send the message, their reflective jackets also tell the story. From the general aviation terminal, it's back to the road as traffic around the airport grinds to a halt for the protesting aviation union members. It's a day to honor the dignity of labor, but there are issues calling for attention. The ghost of the liquidated Nigeria Airways still haunts.
Those Nigeria Airways workers that were disengaged, till today they have been promised, severally we have been promised they will pay them, But nothing has been paid. They are dying in their numbers. We cannot go for burials of those Nigeria Airways, and it is hunger and starvation. Their children are out of school. Many decadent things happening to them.
No problem. The proposed merger of 3 agencies is another, and there is a word of caution to higher authorities.
I can say that in the west coast of Africa, Nigeria has about the best equipped airports. I think we should hold on to that. And then now by the time you come in and merge, it means that you are bringing us 50 years back, and it does not really work out.
When this May Day rally is over, all aviation union workers say they are demanding is a no to this merger. Joining me now is the former managing director of the Nigerian Airspace Management Agency, Mr. Roland Iyayi. You're welcome to the program.
Thank you very much.
Now, let me ask this. Are you satisfied with the development in the nation's aviation industry?
No. When you talk about satisfied, that presupposes that everything is in order. That is not entirely the case. So to that, I would say no.
And what is wrong right now with the aviation industry in Nigeria?
I think fundamentally the structure is defective. And I think that is because we have adopted to a large extent a lot of policies from international sector into our aviation industry without necessarily looking at the context in which those policies were put in place or into effect in those areas where they were adopted from. And ultimately, not having looked at the impact of what it would do to the industry, we've had adverse impacts to a large extent. And I can, sort of talk about examples. I mean, when we go back as far as 1984, when the industry was deregulated, that became like the fad at the time. There was deregulation all over the world. America started. Yes, it was nice to liberalize the market so you can have a choice for consumers. But the thing at the time was we had a Nigeria Airways. That was a national carrier. And everything else up until that point was a monopoly. We had a ground handling company, that was a monopoly. We had everything that was monopolies, airports, monopolies. So basically, in order to deregulate at the time, essentially what you were doing was allowing a lot of different players into the market. There would have been a need for the federal government to prepare Nigeria Airways in order to be able to, continue to provide that service. Understand this. Aviation, to a large extent, is a social service. In the regulated regime, aviation was used by the government of the day to provide a social service. Now, that was the way any national carrier, including Nigeria Airways, was structured. So to that extent, in deregulating without necessarily preparing the same airline for competition that it was going to face, you actually dooming it to failure. And essentially that was what happened. So when you look at that as a huge loss to taxpayers' money, and what has happened, since then, you would see the reason why I said fundamentally the structure is defective. If we had everything done right at that time, then we wouldn't have those adverse impacts today. Now, Nigeria Airways went to all the airports in the country at the time, irrespective of whether or not they were making money. That was because it was a social service. Now, if you ask me as a private operator, would I go to an airfield where I know I don't have the size of a market to tap into? The answer is no. So you now end up having airports all over the country, strewn all over the country, that are termed unviable. I mean, there's nothing so-called anywhere else in the world but Nigeria. Now, if you look at the policy that needs to make all these infrastructure assets, sort of viable, we don't have them in place. So invariably, you would find that to a large extent we'll continue to have the same problems, notwithstanding how much money is pumped into the system. It's like money down the drain. So we need to fundamentally address the structure of the industry before we can start talking about growth. And again, aviation is pivotal to everything Nigeria is doing. We're talking about growth in the economy. We want to see things happen in different sectors of the economy. Aviation is the one fundamental access to markets. If you don't have aviation, you cannot grow your economy at the rate appreciably to compete with other markets in the world. So we are lacking a huge deficit as far as the aviation infrastructure is concerned to support the federal government's goal or objective of growing the economy, and we're talking about GDPs increasing, the rebasing of GDP. All those things can be done right if the fundamental structure of the industry is put right. And I think we need to go back to the very basics, and that's where the whole problem is.
You said that we still lack policies that would make the numerous structures around the country viable. Could you give me an example of one of such policies?
Well, put it this way. How do we license airlines, for instance, in Nigeria? If I came to the NCAA today and told them I had 747 airplanes to operate, they would say to me, well, show us the structure. If I showed them a structure they felt was adequate, not minding the markets I was trying to